Over the years, I've played plenty of games. Some I've thoroughly enjoyed, while others are just total garbage. Most people are used to highly publicized games usually being of very high quality, and thus getting most of the attention. However, over my 30-some years as a gamer, I've come across quite a few titles that, while they didn't get a whole lot of attention before release, or even after release, are some of the best games I've ever played. Case in point, the subject of this review, Darksiders. Originally developed by Vigil Games and released by THQ in 2010, I first bought Darksiders when I owned my PS3. Later on, I owned it on the PC. Even further later on, I owned it on the Xbox 360. Yes, I'm admitting I ended up purchasing the same exact game 3 different times on 3 different consoles. That's how much I enjoyed it. But you'll find, most of the time, either you've heard of the game or you haven't. Let's jump right into why this game, I feel, is literally one of the best games to ever fly under the radar. Darksiders follows the story of War, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The story revolves around the ancient battle between heaven and hell. With neither side ever gaining the advantage, a mediator group was created called the Charred Council, which in turn created the 4 horsemen. Humanity emerges over time, thus the Charred Council forms a truce between heaven and hell, and creates the 7 seals, which must be broken in order to bring about the end of the world. It's never really explained who has the power to break the seals, or what is required to break each one, but that's okay. It's only the last one that's focused on anyways. War arrives on Earth, and is puzzled. Turns out the other horsemen haven't arrived, and the 7th seal hasn't been broken. After chit-chatting with Abaddon, general of Heaven's armies, War is attacked by the demon Straga, and is defeated. Ending up in front of the Charred Council, War is accused of siding with the armies of Hell, in an attempt to tip the balance in Hell's favor. War asks the Council to spare his sentence, so he can figure out what the hell went wrong. No pun intended. As part of their agreement, the Watcher is bound to War. As sort of his watcher, I guess. Basically keeps an eye on War, and is able to kill him if he steps out of line. So off we go! Over the course of War's journey, you'll travel through many different and varied landscapes, from scorching deserts, to abandoned factories, to even the Garden of Eden. There are fast-track warp points located in each area, that you're able to use via speaking with the demon Vulgrim, basically this game's version of a shopkeeper. On top of using warp points, Vulgrim will also sell you items, upgraded skills, and new abilities for souls that you collect through the game via defeating enemies, opening chests, or destroying environmental objects. Throughout each area, you'll face off against hordes of enemies and demons, both ground-based and aerial as well. At your control is a small variety of weapons, but a pretty large amount of attacks and combos. True, there's only 3 main weapons in the game, with a few secondary ones, but I've always found the combat system, while totally relatable, to be very enjoyable. As with other hack and slash type games, the weapons you do have can be upgraded over time, to allow for more damage and more combat moves. You even have the opportunity to pick up fellow horseman Death's Sai too, which doesn't start out that powerful, and is mostly for broad area of effect style attacks, but holy shit! Once you power that beast up, you start tearing shit up. Besides your weapons, you'll also pick up and utilize several items of a helpful nature, like Crossblade, huge bladed throwing weapon which can be used for attacks as well as triggering distant switches or other objects, the hook shot, or the long shot, or the abyssal chain, which is used to cross gaps and grapple onto things, and Ruin, Horsey! Which can be summoned at will to traverse long distances or engage in bosses. It's these items, as well as a bigger sense of puzzles and environmental solutions, that many people consider the game closer in style to, say, Legend of Zelda, as opposed to straight-up combat like Devil May Cry. Transitioning into graphics discussion, they're beautiful. This is really one of the first things that caught me off guard about the game, and what I've really come to enjoy about the series as a whole. The environments are wonderfully designed, with many crisscrossing layers at different altitudes, lush foliage and lighting, and quite a pretty far draw distance. Not to be outdone, the character designs, enemies, and bosses are all top-notch as well, as are objects and items. In particular, I've always found the designs of Heaven's Army to be really unique and interesting. And this is one of those other things that I've always told people about when the game comes up or when I suggest it. And that's the fact that Vigil Games created the Darksiders franchise, and then they went under. So they never really had time to develop a large fan base based on the games they developed. But what they did develop is outstanding. For a game, again, that a lot of people haven't played or know about, the presentation is on par with a AAA produced title, through and through. Bosses, for the most part, are very fun, engaging encounters. They are usually massive compared to War, but not like Shadow of the Colossus massive. Yeah, you're not climbing on bosses or anything. But one of the other things I do like about the bosses in this game, besides their overall designs which are awesome, is the voice work combined with the way they're programmed. And the encounters. Gives the bosses in this game a very real sense of evil and aggressiveness that you normally don't find in a lot of boss encounters. Not spending too much time oogling over the visuals, let's talk about the audio side of this game. Once again, as with the graphics, the audio is totally on par. The sound effects all sound great, and don't sound cheap at all. The voice work is outstanding, and you may recognize War's voice a little bit.
You swore an oath to me.
Abaddon is the destroyer.
Liar!
To protect you, he kept you from the truth. You pledged to follow your lord into hell, never knowing what awaited you, or what he would become.
That's because he's voiced by actor Liam O'Brien. If the name doesn't sound familiar, but the voice does, well, that's because he's probably more famously known as the voice of Illidan Stormrage from World of Warcraft. A lot of the times when I'm playing through the game, I'm just waiting for War to yell out, "You are not prepared!"
You are not prepared!
On top of all that, the music in this game is amazing. The style is very reminiscent of, say, God of War, which one of the composers, Chris Valesco, actually worked on the original God of War trilogy. The music just totally and completely fits the tone of the game, and like everything else, doesn't feel cheap. Think I'm joking? Just listen to the title music. Overall, I cannot praise Darksiders enough. As I've already said before, it's one of the few games in the last, I'd say decade or so, that I've purchased across multiple consoles and platforms because it's such a good game and is so enjoyable. Yeah, okay, sometimes the little bit of backtracking can get a little tedious, but at least the developers provided not only fast movement between the different areas, but with Ruin, you can move a lot faster through an area as well. While I do find the majority of areas a lot of fun to traverse though, sometimes the complex, multi-layered way they're designed can be a little confusing, especially in the Iron Canopy. I mean, not going back on what I said on terrific level design earlier in this review. For the most part, the game is very well balanced in terms of puzzles versus combat, between action and storyline. Some people might say that story doesn't really come into its full potential near the last 1/3 of the game, but I think it does just fine considering the build-up and what's happened so far at that point. This is one of those games that most people probably have seen in the bargain bin at the used game stores, or saw it on sale, never really heard of it, so have always passed in favor of games or IPs that are more well known. Trust me, do not pass this game up. In 2012, we saw the release of Darksiders 2, again, across multiple consoles. It features a much more in-depth RPG system to its weapons and items, but all the other hallmarks of the first game are present. Once again, a lot of people weren't aware of the first game, so they didn't really have much interest in the second game, but both are awesome. Okay. Darksiders 2 is a little different in its combat and gear, but it's still a blast to play, and doesn't sacrifice any parts of the story or presentation to do something different. Both games have received HD makeovers as of the time of this review's upload, both on multiple current-gen platforms. Now, Vigil Games went under in 2012 because their parent company, THQ, filed for bankruptcy. And it's always bugged me because, A, had the company been bought out by another publisher and allowed to keep making more games in the series, who knows where it would have led? And B, they had such a strong IP going, and it had such potential. Now, the IP to the franchise itself was bought by Nordic Games in 2013, and at the time, upon receiving massive interest from fans as to whether Nordic was going to continue with the Darksiders franchise, basically Nordic said, fuck no. So, in the intervening years, there was a lot of hope lost, as because only 2 games have been made, there's still 2 more Horsemen left to create more games with. That was all put to bed in 2017, when the new THQ Nordic announced that Darksiders 3 was officially in development and was being worked on. Yay! I couldn't believe it when I heard it was confirmed. And not only that, but it's scheduled to be released in 2018 already. It's going to be awesome just like the first 2. If what I've said hasn't convinced you to go try this game, or even try this series out if you haven't already, what's the matter with you? Rewind this review. Rewind the review. That's right. Back to the beginning. And watch it again. Because I think you missed the message. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Go check it out.